My parents, Bea and Kurt Israel, of blessed memory, were both Holocaust survivors from Germany. Welcome to this year's Yom HaShoah commemoration. We're here once again, as in years past, for the solemn task to remember the cherished family members of our community and all who were murdered during the Shoah. As a second-generation Holocaust descendant, I vow never to forget the lives of the Jewish men, women, and children who were martyred and are symbolized by the candles burning before you. Their lives were taken in cruelty. May we be inspired to learn more about the 6 million brothers and sisters as individuals and as communities, to recall their memory throughout the year so they will not suffer a double death. May we recall not only the terror of their deaths, but also the splendor of their lives. May the memory of their lives inspire us to hallow our own lives and to live a meaningful Jewish life so that we may help to ensure that part of who they were shall endure always. May their memory be a blessing for all of us. Collective thanks to David Jacobs, the Executive Director of the Mandel JCC, Kathy Fishman, Executive Director of Voices of Hope, and the Bethel Synagogue for hosting this evening's ceremony. Thank you to all the rabbis who took part in our candlelighting ceremony. Also, thank you to cantors Sabrina Lipton, Joseph Ness, Daniela Reisman. We also thank the greeters and the members of the Yom HaShoah Committee for making this evening possible. Tonight, you'll hear the voices of the Kingswood Choir, and also you'll hear the family of Ruth Weiner, and their conversation will be moderated by Beth Rose. Thank you.
Welcome all. My name is Sharon Kornman, and I'm the daughter of 2 survivors, Irene and Eugene Frisch. Off script, I want to acknowledge that the choir is beautiful, and my mother would have been delighted to see all of you in red scarves. It would have absolutely meant a lot to her. Many of you knew my mom and her story because she spoke at one of these commemorations about 15 years ago, and also because she lived in the community the last 7 years of her life. But only a handful of you know much about my father, Eugene Frisch. In fact, most of what I know about his survival experience, I learned after he passed away, when I went to his hometown and when I started going through his papers, because he did not, unlike my mother, my father did not talk about those years at all. And so during COVID, I came across a poem that he wrote in 1938 in a letter that his family wrote to some cousins who had already immigrated to then Palestine, now Israel. And I translated loosely. It's written in very rudimentary Hebrew that he was studying, and he was 16 at the time, and this is my loose translation. The land of Israel is the land of our birth. Our fathers and our mothers moved there now for a warm land. We also hope to travel there because this is our land, to see your faces with us. And then he signed it in Hebrew, thinking always of the land of Israel from Poland, and to be together with you, Gershon Frisch, that was his name. While my teenage father dreamed of a life in Israel, the Germans and their collaborators had other plans. And by the time that trip was possible in the early 1950s, my father was about 30 and all alone. His parents and younger brother were dead. The trip to Israel was short, and that dream was no longer possible. So he moved on to New York City to start a new life with new American dreams. He loved this country, and he would often exclaim, even to his dying days, "God bless America, the greatest country in the world." But he also ardently supported Israel, no matter who was in charge. and he traveled there as many times as he could over the years. Today, we honor the victims of the Shoah and the survivors, like my parents, whose hopes and dreams were cruelly dashed. We also honor the new lives the survivors forged in America against all odds with little help or guidance. We, 2Gs and 3Gs and a few 4Gs, are here today thanks to their bravery, resilience, and quite a bit of luck. And we are all here tonight to honor our obligation to never forget. Thank you.
We would like to call up each individual that will be lighting the candles in commemoration of the 6 million. The first one will be Ernest Bomi Gelb. Born in Czechoslovakia, Bomi survived life in 2 ghettos, after which he was deported to Auschwitz and then Buchenwald, and 2 more satellite concentration camps. Jenny Kalsner. Born in Antwerp, Belgium, Jenny survived in hiding as a child with help of members of the underground. Her family hid in Mortsel, Belgium for 2 years with 4 other Jews. Esther Kanner. Born in Tomaszow, Poland, Esther and her family first escaped to Lvov, then spent a year in forced slave labor camp in Siberia, and survived the remainder of the war in Uzbekistan. Miriam Schreiber. Born in Poland, Miriam survived by escaping into the woods until her family's capture, followed by 6 years in forced slave labor camp in Siberia. Ruth Wiener. Born in Vienna, Austria, Ruth survived by escaping to England via the Kinder transport just weeks before the start of World War II. Marat Yurovsky. Born in the Balta region of Ukraine, Marat survived 2.5 years in the Balta ghetto, where as a young child he helped his mother in her clandestine work to gather supplies and information for a nearby partisan resistance group.
My poppy, Abby Weiner, unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but was the kindest person I ever met. He was so special and meant the world to me. Even through all the terrible hardships and challenges he was faced with, he continued to fight and never gave up. He never had the why me attitude, and is one of many people who have inspired and helped me become the person I am today. He helped me realize that you should never be afraid to speak up for what you believe in, and that you should keep your chin up high and never give up. I love him so much and miss him dearly every day, but he will always have a special place in my heart. We must never forget. I am a member of the Kingswood Oxford's Voces Women Ensemble, and tonight we are honored to be here at this very important program to sing for a second year. Thank you so much for inviting us. I would like to introduce our director, Mr. Steve Mitchell, to introduce our song.
Thank you, Lily. As Lily said, this is our second year participating in this service. It was an honor to be asked last year as we sang music that was associated with the Butterfly Project, and we sang The Last Butterfly. As we looked through our music, we were looking at music we felt would be wonderful to share in this setting. And then we had the honor of a visit from Rabbi Lazowski, who spoke to our entire student body just a few weeks ago now. In that time, what I was able to reflect on with the girls was the fact that despite the atrocity and the loss, that in this man continued to shine hope and a vision for the future that was filled with not only hope, but constant remembrance. And we see it in his son as well. And so the song that we've selected is a song written by a Connecticut composer, Amy Bernan. It's called She Sings. And it tells the story of a young girl who is just blissfully, happily enjoying her life. Far away in a far-off land, this child loves to sing. She opens up her fragile heart and her song takes wing. She lies in the cool grass with her hair open like a fan in the sunshine, just singing. And then she cries. She cries for light when the day is done, because she fears what night may bring. She cries for those who have never loved and for those who may never sing.
I would like to thank Kingswood Choir for choosing this song, especially since I spoke to them less than a week ago, so thank again. Thank you so much. Let's everybody rise. El molerachamim, shochem bamroimim. Am Zeinu nechonu, tachat kamfi ashkina, bemalos gedoshim, utorim, kezohar rakia, mazirim es nishmot, kol acheinu bnei Yisrael, shenitbechu bashoah, anashim, nashim, v'tav, שנחנקו ושנשרפו ושנהרגו, שמסרו את נפשם על קידוש השם, בגן עדן תהי מנוחתם. ונבל הרחמים, אז תראיהם בסיסק נפך לעולמים, וצרו בצור חיים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם. ואנוכו בשלום על משפטיהם, ונאמר Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace and sheltering presence among the holy and pure, whose radiance is like the heavens, to the souls of all men, women, and children of the house of Israel, who were slaughtered, strangled, and burned in the Shoah. May they rest in paradise. Master of mercy, may they find eternal shelter beneath your sheltering wings. And may their souls be bound up in the bond of life. Adonai is their portion. May they rest in peace from now and forevermore. And let us all say, Amen. May be seated.
We've been coming together for these many years to commemorate the martyrs of the Shoah, which include my grandparents and my uncle of blessed memory, as well as my entire extended family. I would also like to recognize the presence of the survivors of the Shoah as well tonight. My father of blessed memory was the only living survivor from his family. We thank you for bearing witness and sharing your testimony across the decades. We are blessed to have you in our presence, and I'd like to ask you to please rise if you can so that we can honor and recognize you. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name's Elizabeth Rose. I'm the director of the Jewish Historical Society. I have the great honor of helping to organize this conversation with Ruth Weiner and members of her family. And we wanted to talk about how each of you has carried on, understood, or connected with the legacy of your family's experiences under Nazism. So I'm going to start with Ruth. And Ruth, can you tell me a little bit about how your parents especially responded to your family's experience during that time, especially by helping other refugees? And then my second question would be how you personally have carried on that legacy in your own life as an adult.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes, okay. If you can't, because I have a bad habit of dropping my voice, folks in back, just please put a hand up and I will improve. We had talked a little bit earlier in the day today as to what I was going to say, and I just want to give you a warning, I'm about to change it. The question was the legacy of my parents. And this, of course, is a family presentation. And it is what this whole evening is about. It's the expression door to door, generation to generation, is probably overused a little bit. In this instance, it isn't. It's a chain, and it's an unending change. And I really just see myself as one link in that chain. I heard the name of my grandparents named in the listing, and I didn't think it was going to affect me. It very much did. I was sitting next to a very dear friend, also a survivor, came to this country as a young man after having been through the worst of the worst. And he said to me, you know, I remember your father. He was one of the first people when I first came, and he was so nice. He was a gentleman to me. And I suspect that there are other people in this room who would remember my father and my mother with that kind of a kindness and honor. And that really is the greatest honor that anybody can have. And my mother, after having gone through very difficult challenges, really things that nobody should have to overcome in their lifetime, came to Hartford, started out because she was wonderful at ironing, working in a excuse me, working in a laundry, no air conditioning, of course. And then eventually, when the refugees began coming from Europe, the Jewish Social Service realized the talents that she had. She spoke several languages, had been through the entire process of being a refugee, escaping the Holocaust. And she became the worker who settled the people who came to town. And again, I think I could ask if there are people here who knew my mother. I won't. And I would get hands up, even this many generations down, because she really dealt with just about every family. When I was listening to the names as they were being read, most of them are no longer with us. You asked what my own legacy is for the, let me just share a little story. When my granddaughter Allie here was about 10 or 11, and her older sister Jillian about 4 years older, we took them to the Holocaust Museum. And in our family, kids always knew about the Holocaust. We always talked about it. It was never a taboo subject. And they handled it very well. And when they were all through, going through the building, we came back downstairs, and they were still ready to go. They wanted to see more. I had kind of finished my walking quota, and I was looking for a nice place to sit down. And if you've been to the museum, you know they have tables in the middle of the hall, the large hall when you come in, with Holocaust survivors who will talk to you. So I sat down and I talked to a nice lady about my own age, and the two girls went off into the, excuse me, went off into the children's exhibit, which is on that main floor. And the person I was talking to and I discovered very quickly that we both had lived in Israel, and the discussion moved into Hebrew. And I'm sitting with my back to where the children's exhibit was, and she taps me on the shoulder, and she says, "Hine ba'ot hanekama shalach." Translation, here comes your revenge. Nekama is usually translated as revenge. And it chilled me. Because I was looking for two cute girls, and I turned around, and sure enough, they were coming there looking still very energetic, heads held high, very serious faces. And I'm thinking, and I had been thinking for a long time after that, how can two beautiful children be nekama? And I'll tell you, nekama, by biblical support, could easily be interpreted, we lost 6 million of our best. Why don't we murder 6 million more and we'll be even? No, that's not what it's supposed to be. Nekama can be many other things. Nekama, in our case, and this is what we're doing tonight, is remembrance. I'm wearing a little pin. It says on it, Zachor. It's made of a very precious metal, and the precious metal, in this case, is part of the barbed wire fence that surrounded Auschwitz. And what is the message that it carries? Remember, and it's what we're doing tonight. What's nekama? Nekama is remembrance. What's nekama? When I look at the faces of some of the survivors here, it's recovery. It's not sitting around licking your wounds, it's reviving from them. What's nekama? It's restoring, it's putting back together the things that were broken in the best way that we possibly can. What else is nekama? It's renewing and it's rebuilding, and that's what I've tried to do. And I've had a couple of times in my life when I've had to make a decision. And the decision wasn't always easy, but it became something that followed one or the other of those pathways.
I'm going to turn to my son Yoni now, and I understand that you've had a special connection with a family history by learning about your great-grandfather. Could you tell us a little bit about what that has meant to you?
Yes, I'm Jonathan, also known as Yoni. It's Yonatan Pinchas. I'm named for the one member of our family that didn't make it out. And I'm a professor. I'm used to talking a lot, and I talk about difficult topics, but never as difficult as this, because we're a very lucky family, but not so Pinchas dying. Pinchas was the one left behind in Vienna, and when my mother and her mother and others, by the grace of God, made it to England, Pinchas was left behind. No way that they were able to get papers. And we never knew what happened to Pinchas. And we heard he died in Auschwitz, and sure enough, Pinchas Stein, age 30, died in Auschwitz with a different birthday, we found out. Our Pinchas died at 69. You're a historian. I'm not a historian. I'm in medical public health. But I became a historian. My mom said, well, I heard that Pinchas was deported to Riga. A little-known fact, the Germans were very meticulous. That's not a little-known fact. That's a known fact. But when they started the final solution, they didn't want to do it next door. So they put all German and Viennese Jews on trains. to Riga. They rounded up all the Jews in Riga, put them in not a concentration camp, in a ghetto, but to make room for the German and Viennese Jews, they took the Riga Jews out to the forest, and it was only second to Baba Yar in terms of atrocity. I won't go into detail, but you can imagine it was about as bad as you can. But they did that to make room for my grandfather and 20,000 other German and Viennese Jews. Now, I learned this all by being a historian in looking at Yad Vashem records. The Austrians, which haven't done such a great job, but they have brought some of this back archivally. And I was able to find, actually, sitting on a cruise ship, we went to Scandinavia, the Baltics, and Russia, a list of everybody on the trains, 20 trains, all typed with their names, middle names were all inserted. Israel, if you were Jewish, if you were male, Sarah, if you were a female, as a sign of disrespect. Forget about Pinchas David Stein. It became Pinchas Israel Stein. There he was on the list that I found, number 308. Everybody on the train had a number. Everybody on all 20 trains had a number. And also the ghetto that they had put them in, his address. And when I got to Riga, I went to the train station. And later I had learned that no, he didn't make it, in all likelihood, to the ghetto, which had been cleared out with all the Latvian Jews, because that was the first place that the SS, the Eisengruppen, the worst of the worst, the Odessa file, decided to learn about gas. And what they did is they offered people on that train with Swiss, now Mercedes-Benz vans, with 100 people each, a ride to the ghetto, or they offered them to walk. About 100 people chose to walk. The other 900, after being on a train with 10-degree weather outside, it was the middle of February, we assume. So that's the story as a historian, which I'm not, I learned, but it's one that needs to be told today. So we pretty much learned what happened to our grandfather, great-grandfather, and it's a story not dissimilar from 6 million others. So I'm sorry to have to be the one to describe that, but it needs to be described today. So thank you for having us here.
Thank you so much. Nate and Allie wanted to ask you a little bit about how you've connected with this story of your family and what it's meant to you. Nate, do you want to go first?
Sure. Not on. Oh, there we go. So I'm the grandson, the eldest grandson, and so as Ruth mentioned, Holocaust was always mentioned, in our family. It was always close, but as a child, it was always this, this thing. And I remember the first time it kind of hit me as a kid was when I was looking at a family tree. On one side, it kind of sprawls, and on the other side, it like a limb chopped off. And that, but it wasn't really until college where we went on a family trip where we went to Vienna, Berlin, and Prague to kind of, rewalk in kind of, Ruth's journey. And in Vienna, we got to see the school that she used to go to. So there was a Hebrew school there, and I think Allie is a different version, but we walked in and it was peering around, and all of a sudden these guys with guns come out and we start speaking Hebrew and they shuttle us in, and it was very cool to kind of, experience that. But it was also very powerful in Vienna to kind of see where Ruth used to live, and the cobbler, was that the family business? See where the family business was, but also, what was very powerful to me was seeing the door, and there was a beautiful kind of wooden door, and she described during Kristallnacht that, they had one of the best doors on the street, and because of that, no one came in that day, versus, other people on the street were taken away. And that always just stuck with me, of just, kind of the butterfly effect I think mentioned earlier, just one thing, that led to another, which is why we're here. And then, got to see Berlin, and it was very, all of a sudden this avant-garde city, where all these atrocities happened, but all these people were, very, especially my generation wanted to learn more. Of anyone I've ever met, wanted to learn more of what happened, wanted to remember. But also went to Theresienstadt, and that was, it was a very strange dichotomy. On one hand, you saw all this beautiful, art, and it was kind of music that was created there. But then at the end, getting taken to the chambers and the ovens and kind of, just the atrocities. And Ruth was, mentioning today that I kind of left Prague. You see this beautiful kind of classical medieval city, and I'm just looking around, and all I said was, why? Why? How could someplace so beautiful creates, such evil? And I think sticking, with me today, being, a few generations still, and I think, and, a recent father, and I'm trying to think through what message do I take, how do I pass this on? And, I think it's, keeping the mantle of hope and bringing, others up, and not necessarily, based on, religion or race or gender or whatever, of scapegoats or others, of how do you kind of bring, your fellow man up and bring us all together. And so I think it's a, very moved here today, just hearing all the other journeys, but, one of our own. So.
Thank you. Ellie, similar question. How have you connected with this family legacy, and what does it mean to you now?
So as my grandma mentioned, I've gone to a few different Holocaust museums all over the world, actually, now. And, the Washington, D.C. trip started it. And then when I was a freshman in high school, my grandparents took me to Vienna as well as Israel for a three-week trip. And I can remember, the different, emotions associated with seeing those memorials, and one that always stuck with me was the Children's Memorial in Israel. And as I got older, I then went on to going to Auschwitz myself and seeing just the hurtful emotion you could feel walking into that place, and knowing how many people had to deal with that, and being so grateful that my grandmother never had to go there, and that I have her a part of my life, is something that I've always found to be so powerful in my life. And when we were in Vienna, I got to see the culture and everything that she got to experience, but that was also taken away because of this, mass event in our society. And I think for me, in terms of, what I carry through is and something that I do in my own life is just constantly helping others, is no matter what community or anything, you will always be there for one another, rather than, turning people away or judging people based on how they look or what religions or whatever they practice in their lives or their values are. Just being one culture, one community, who want to support one another. And so that's always something I've practiced and taken away as a legacy, and learned through talking about the Holocaust with my grandparents and the events that happened, and learning about it in school and everything. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. So I'm hearing some common threads of helping others, lifting people up, and remembrance. Are there other quick threads that you would like to bring up in terms of how this legacy from your family, how you see it carrying forward? Ruth or Yoni, would you like to comment on that?
I'm sorry.
Would you like to add anything before we wrap up in terms of the...
Well, only, still alive. Only the idea that we're links, we're all links in a chain, each and every one of us, and that chain needs to continue. I'd like to leave one quick thought with you, and that's this one. I've had the good fortune to be able to continue teaching. I'm a teacher, and teachers like to teach. And I've, at this point, had the opportunity to interact with literally thousands of high school students, high school and even younger. And I've come away in a time of great challenge and some really awful things that are happening in terms of a rekindling of anti-Semitism and many things that go beyond that that are really very dangerous. I've come away with a lot of hope and a lot of positive inclination, because the students, and these are not Jewish students, obviously, the students that I encounter consistently have such a positive response. And I know there are other people in this room who do what I do, and I'm seeing some heads go up and down. The kids are wonderful, they are. And it gives us an opportunity, and we really all, each and every one of us, have to take advantage of that opportunity, that you don't stand by and hope that the future will take care of itself, but that we are out there supporting and spreading the message and allowing for the rebuilding and the renewal.
Thank you so much, and thanks to each of you for showing how you are a link in the chain of your own family, as well as in how that ripples out and touches so many other people. Thanks very much.
I think I can say for all of us, thank you for giving us the opportunity.
Hi, I'm Jacob Schreiber, and I'm here to keep the candle burning for my grandfather, Jacob Schreier, who was murdered in Sobibor. I'm here to keep the candle burning for my mother, who was a hidden child. Will you please rise so we can say the mourner's Kaddish? And today we're all mourners, so if you want to join along, please do. Yitgadal v'yikadash shmei Rabbah, ve'alma divrach cherutei, ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'meichon, v'chayei dechol beis Yisrael, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach, Le'olam ulmeil maya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar, v'yithaleh, v'yithalal, shmei dekudsha, b'richu, le'ila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'yemru amen. Yehei shlema rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'yemru amen. Oseh shalom bimramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'akol Yisrael v'yemru amen. Am Yisrael Chai.
Please remain standing as we continue with Zognit Kainmo, the Song of the Partisans. Zognit Kainmo, als du gehst den letzten Weg, Gott Himmeln bleiben, verschellen neue Tag. Kommen mit noch unser ausgewiegte Show, Zweiter Point und unser Freund wir seinen da. Kommen mit noch unser ausgewiegte Show, Zweiter Point und unser Freund wir seinen da. Von grünem Palmenland bis weiten Land von Schnee, wir kommen und bin unser Wein mit unser Weg. Und wo gefallen ist das Stritz vor unser Blut, sprotzen weg und unser Gure, unser Mut. Wo gefallen ist das Stritz vor unser Blut, sprotzen weg und unser Gure, unser Mut. Sonne, kein Mal, als du gehst den letzten Weg, Gott Himmeln bleiben, verstellen bleuen Tag.
Kommen wird und unser Häuschen pennt der Show, Sveta Point und unser Krötter seinen Jo. Kommen wird und unser Häuschen pennt der Show, Sveta Point und unser Krötter seinen Jo.
We'll close this evening with Hatikva.
See